19th century and Haworth, West Yorkshire. A quiet village nestled amongst the moors, its cobbled streets winding tightly around the parish church. To the casual eye, it might have looked picturesque, but beneath the surface, Haworth was a place of unimaginable horror. The air carried the stench of open drains, the streets overflowed with waste, and the very water the people drank, well, it was poisoned. Here in the shadow of the Bronte parsonage, life was short, death was constant, and children rarely lived long enough to know their own parents' faces. Today we're here in Haworth, and as you can see behind me, it's extremely quiet, which is a change, it's a huge change. Normally, Haworth is bustling with tourists from all over the world. Many of them come for the history of the Brontes. This is what Haworth basically is well known for. But today it's a Monday morning and everybody, or pretty much all the schools in England, have returned back to school today. So, as you can see behind me, it's extremely quiet, the perfect day for filming. But we're going to walk along the cobbled streets and we're going to delve into the darker side of Haworth today. And we're going to talk about how death was so prominent in the early to middle 1800s that Haworth itself was known as the village of the dead. The Industrial Revolution brought people to Haworth in droves, but with growth came filth. The village had no proper sewage system. Human waste, animal blood from butchers and household refuse all ran freely down the steep, cobbled streets. Heavy rain carried it through the village like a tide of disease. And yet the villagers still had to drink. Now, many of the people of Haworth had to rely on nothing but pumps and wells. And many of these, well, they were dug very close to cesspits and open drains. Some were poisoned by runoff from the overcrowded churchyard, where bodies were buried so shallow that the ground itself swelled and leaked with decomposition. Every drop of water carried death within it. It was also said that the cattle would even stay away from the water. Sometimes it was green, putrid and extremely smelly, and they had the common sense not to go anywhere near it. The consequences, they were merciless. Typhoid, cholera, dysentery. Epidemics that swept through the narrow streets, leaving behind tiny coffins and grieving families. Life expectancy in Haworth was just 24 years. Nearly half of all the children were dead before their 6th birthday. In truth, Haworth itself had become a village of funerals. The Bronte themselves, they lived directly beside this nightmare. Next to the churchyard were thousands of rotting bodies pressed against the earth. Their parsonage had its own spring, but they were not untouched by Haworth's curse. The family was no stranger to sickness, no stranger to death. Charlotte Bronte herself, who would give the world Jane Eyre, died in 1855 from tuberculosis. But many believe she also suffered with typhoid fever, born of Haworth's poisoned wells. Death was in the air they breathed, the water they drank, the earth beneath their very feet. One man, however, refused to accept Haworth's fate. Reverend Patrick Bronte, parson of the village, father of the famous sisters. He had buried far too many parishioners. Children, mothers, whole families wiped out. He could stand it no longer. So in 1850, he commissioned an investigation into Haworth's water and sanitation. There are quite a lot of graves here in Haworth graveyard, which back up just how bad it was all those years ago, and how many families lost their lives at such a young age, and especially children. And you've got this one here. You've got Jeremiah and Mary Ann Holmes, who died in their infancy. You've also got this one next to it, where there's a little carving of a child at the base. And the names on it, you've got James, I think it's pronounced Witham. Their son died July 19th, 1878, in the second year of his age. Now, okay, 1878 is many years after the Babbage reports and after Patrick Bronte himself obviously instigated an investigation into Haworth's water and sanitisation. But some of these graves go back even further, the early 1800s, and more so obviously when a lot of these deaths occurred. Like I said, infants, young children dying at such a young age, simply because of poor sanitation and the diseases in which the water supply itself carried. The task of investigating Haworth's claims of obviously poor water, poor sanitation, and obviously the death rates, and especially more so with the children, it fell to Benjamin Herschel Babbage, the son of the great mathematician Charles Babbage. And what he found was a catalogue of horrors. Wells dug beside cesspools, water so foul it festered with disease, a graveyard overflowing with shallow, rotting corpses, their bodily fluids seeping into the soil and eventually into the veins of the village. Now, what Babbage himself encountered, and he saw this with his very own eyes, was that one of the wells he came across was within just a few feet of human waste. Basically, it was a death trap disguised as a source of life. His report was damning, and it could not be ignored. And in 1856, after years of resistance, Haworth finally received a new water supply, clean, fresh, uncontaminated. For the first time in decades, the people of Haworth could drink without fear. The Babbage report, it was a tremendous help, and it changed and it reformed how small villages and towns supplied water to their people. The people of Haworth couldn't be more grateful. The amount of lives that the Babbage report eventually would save would run into its millions. Like I said, it wasn't a change just for the people here in Haworth. It was a big change for the people of the United Kingdom. I guess for Haworth's people, many would say it came too late. Entire generations had already been lost to the poisoned wells and rotting graveyard. The memory of their suffering lingered long after the water was purified, etched into the fabric of the village itself. Now, the many novels that the Bronte daughters themselves wrote would have been influenced, I would say, by the tragedy, the sorrow, and the loss that these young women went through. All their lives lost due to the poor sanitation, the extremely lethal water supply. All these deaths at such young ages surely would have influenced some of their writing in perhaps all of those novels. We've also come across this headstone of two young children. One called Michael, who passed away in 1842, aged just 5 years. And also the daughter, Martha, who passed away in 1845, aged 6 years. Well, there's also another child. And I think it's Susie, spelled S-U-S-E-Y. Their daughter, who died in 1850, I think it's 1850, in the 9th year of her age. So this is what we're talking about, young children passing away at such young ages in the early to mid 1800s. And it does beg the question, were these victims of, obviously, the poor sanitation, the drinking water, that once poisoned this fabulous looking village. So as we leave it from here on the moorland just outside of Haworth itself, the moorland which the Bronte sisters themselves will more than likely have trodden on all those years ago. We hope you found today's story fascinating. Now, the story of Babbage and how he transformed Haworth and how his transformation itself would transform Victorian England, it's so in-depth, far too big for today's video. We've just touched upon Haworth as one single small village back in that period of time. For more information, check online. If I can find those links, I will put them down below for more information about Babbage and what he discovered and how he transformed everything. But in the meantime, if you did find this story fascinating, don't forget to say a big thumbs up, don't forget to comment, don't forget to like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because it does help us grow and we really do appreciate it. There is also a new feature just close to that like button, and it's called Hype. Now, if you can click on that little button for us, it helps push the video out even further, and it's a bit of fun for you guys watching the video, because every time you click on that Hype button with a video, you will go onto a leaderboard. So obviously the more times you hype it, the further up that leaderboard you guys can make yourselves. There's no price for it, it's just a bit of fun, but it helps the channel get out there more to people who may not know about Days of Horror. So again, it's a little bit of fun, but if you can click on that, it will mean a lot to myself and Vicky. But as you can see, the rain is now coming down in buckets. So we are going to leave the moors behind us. We're going to make our way home. But like I said, if you can do all those things, guys, we would really appreciate it. So as I always say at the end of each video, don't forget to stay safe, but stay curious.